got the camera on today again, just for the hell of it.
I talked to my wife about that because, like I said, we're always talking about psychology, mental health. It's a big thing in my family. Like as far as our interests, you know.
That is cold water.
Ooh, that sucks.
It was in the car all night. I'm amazed it's actually,
But I relate it to this way because, like, I hate certain terms. You know, like we're talking about words mean things, and I hate certain terms like interpersonal communication. What other kind of communication is that? Like, why do we have a word interpersonal?
I talk to my dog all the time, and I don't refer to my dog as a person.
I guess that's probably my own schemata because I refer to, like, I have a different take, like, as we've discussed on consciousness, and I think person is a relative term. But anyhow, but I think of it like conceptual radar. When we communicate with somebody, when we share our emotions or our ideas, what we're doing is we're putting our ideas and concepts into the universe, and we're expecting some kind of feedback to tell us whether we're right or wrong, or whether we can go this way or that way, or whether we need to stand on our stance. You know what I mean? We're always comparing ourselves.
Some folks are already on our Zoom thing, and I'm not there yet. And I can't forget that after we finish class, I have an appointment with a friend.
Oh. I'm the same way.
And I'm supposed to have my first martini.
Never had a martini?
I've never had a martini.
Don't get your hopes up. At least in my opinion.
One of the reasons I haven't had a martini is because apart from James Bond, stirred,
Yeah.
shaken, not stirred, I've never been essentially impressed by the
Concept of it, like
the funny little
the olive
icon.
I mean, that's really what I think a lot of drinks are. They're just like iconography that we attach ourselves to.
So I'm joining it this time.
Personally, I can't stand the
These
taste
folks
of
are
vermouth.
already there.
I don't like gin.
Is that what's in a martini? I don't even know.
Well, there's different types of martinis, but at their heart, it's gin is the main base.
Greetings. Looks like I'm late actually to this party. Other folks are already there. Though the computer has been slow starting up for some reason. So. We should. The syllabus. Da-da-da.
Good God.
So, well, we're down to just the two of us. I'm glad you still come. I've seen my colleague in that room across the way,
Yeah,
sitting there all by himself
that's gotta be
with
so
his
weird.
laptop, and then that stopped. So, at the moment, I don't see anybody in that room, and yet his class meets the same time as this.
Yeah, but the parking lot seems pretty dead compared to usual too.
And we don't even have snow yet.
No.
So I'm guessing you folks are happier being home than having gotten up and come out finally we have freezing temperatures, which is kind of normal for this time of year. So I could wait a few more minutes because we're officially not 10 o'clock yet, which is good, I suppose. 1 whole minute left. So we have one whole minute left for anyone to come in.
How many people do we have on Zoom?
Let's take a look. 6, counting myself.
Nice.
So 5. So 5 times as many people on Zoom, and it's still early yet. So, but so I'm looking at the syllabus to remind myself, if not anyone else, that today we were supposed to be talking about Kurt Gödel, but as you can see, on Tuesday we were supposed to be talking about Frege, and apart from just pulling up one particular page, the Wikipedia page on Frege, Gottlob Frege, we didn't get very far, really, on him, even though he's the one who invented predicate logic, which we've already talked a little bit about because Willard Van Orman Quine was famous starting in 1952 for his essay, Two Dogmas of Empiricism, where he demonstrated that the 2 different quantifiers are equivalent if you use the exchange quantifier exchange rule. Greetings.
Hey, good morning.
How are you, Charlie?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm still alive,
Keeping it?
which, you know, considering this is also the oldest I've ever been, you know, which I like that as a joke, but, you know, if we were to quantify it, it's for anything you pick. If it is a living being, then it is the oldest it has ever been.
See that for anything that's not even a living being. All things are the oldest they've ever been.
You know, I was thinking I would have to stick to just living things, but I think you're right. That's a broader concept for anything you pick. It's the oldest it's ever been, which is in a sense telling us something generic about the nature of time, that we think of time as following a particular direction. Well, let me go back in time, because last class, in order to introduce Gottlob Frege's solution, if we could call it that, I think in a way you don't have to think of these as solutions; they're just added complexity. You know, who gets away with adding some more complexity, and especially if they get paid to be teaching it. You know, that's kind of cool. Last night, I know everybody reads different things at night to fall asleep and so on. I was reading about Alfred Tarski, you know, kind of logician, you know, Polish, rescued by Quine, by the way, because he was Jewish, and the folks that, you know, there's different kinds of intelligence. And some people had the kind of intelligence that said, things in Europe are not looking pretty for people who are of the Jewish persuasion. And in fact, you don't even have to be persuaded. You could be just genetically through a tree, you know. In fact, the funniest thing was Kurt Gödel wasn't Jewish, but looked Jewish. So not good, you know, not good when you have demagogues spouting about aliens among us, Jewish ones specifically. Of course, at that time it was Hitler, and this kind of suggests that we have some today. We were talking about it last night. Some folks, because some of them are Jewish, and as a matter of fact, since roughly 30%. This is not that big a percentage, but 30% of the people who have all the wealth in the United States are Jewish. And so if there's a conflict over the wealth divide, et cetera, who has access to it, et cetera. It reminded me in the discussion of a book I read years ago of James Michener, The Source. If you're into novels, history, you know, history is important. We ought to have a kind of a picture of how history moves. And Michener writes his books in novel form. And so I became attached to Michener. I read his book Texas, Alaska, Chesapeake, The Source, which is about Israel, The Covenant, which is about South Africa, Hawaii, which is about Hawaii, and The Right Stuff, which is about the space program. It's like, what? Where did that come from? But in The Source, he talks about how the Jewish diaspora, all the people that left after Rome crushed the Bar Kokhba revolution in 68 AD. They kind of went all over the place, and every so often people get upset because of the way the economy is going, and they turn and they blame those who have all the money. Actually makes sense if you think about it. And why do the Jewish people tend to have most money? Well, they're unique as a culture in stressing male education, so that every male, not female, but every male has to be trained to read and write and think and discuss and dispute. So it was the one culture that had a mandatory male education starting from childhood, so that you ended up with really the educated class for 2,000 years, and still, right? So you end up with a group of people where the education, which we now realize, hey, you want to get ahead, get an education. So that's kind of a cyclical thing, though, where the rest of society would periodically crush the ones with all the wealth, which turned out to be the Jewish ones. And so you have that kind of atmosphere today, even of people being upset. How come so many people have nothing, and these few people have more than you can imagine? Okay, so going back to where we left off last class, in order to talk about Gottlob Frege and his accomplishments, I was going to bring up some of the segmented kinds of accomplishments that were leading up to it, and one of them was Hume's principle, which means you need to talk about David Hume. And then, as I'm thinking about it, since we had a gap between here and then, now and then, I was thinking, well, really, to make sense of Hume's accomplishment, you need to go back. How far back do you have to go? But at least John Locke. So let's and part of the reason for that is I just talked about John Locke in class yesterday, where we're doing the history of philosophy. And John Locke has multiple things. One of the main reasons we especially think about John Locke is because it was his version of the social contract theory, which gave us our Constitution. Because John Locke was one of the three people that Thomas Jefferson worshipped enough that he put their paintings on his wall in Monticello, which I saw personally. They're still there. It's Francis Bacon, John Locke, and Sir Isaac Newton. I paused there because it just dawned on me that Charlie walked out and he's in communications with someone. So I'm thinking, where's Maeve? Because Maeve and he usually are together. And trust. Have you seen any other folks out there?
I don't see anybody
What
out
the
there,
heck?
Like, not even just from this class. Nobody's out there.
It's weird, man.
Is it like a holiday today or something? Because on Columbus Day, there's like nobody in my class.
Yeah, I don't know holiday that day.
Yeah.
I had a good class on Columbus Day,
Really?
or Indigenous
Yeah.
Peoples Day, Colin's here now too. So we're up to 3, but
In there.
well, it's always been the case as semesters go, as the
Yeah.
time goes, that the population of the class starts out full, almost. Usually at least one person or another, like in Colorado.